Are you noticing your car insurance rate creep up even without tickets or claims? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry handles the legwork by comparing quotes side by side from over 50 top insurers, so you can confidently hit buy. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Jerry even tracks rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Don't settle for higher rates. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/ACAST today.
ClickUp just solved AI's biggest problem, and it's saving 4 million teams from productivity loss every day. Unlike ChatGPT and other AI tools, ClickUp converges all your work into one platform, so your AI super agents have full context to prioritize tasks, execute workflows, and draft documents instantly. Teams using ClickUp finish work 30% faster and cut meetings in half. Try ClickUp for free today and get 15% off AI upgrades at clickup.com/podcast. That's CLICKUP.com/podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by Amantara. Amantara is an education-first plant and mushroom wellness brand, and they specialise in providing dietary supplements that can aid your well-being. Amanita muscaria is a legal mushroom that is traditionally associated with relaxation and nervous system calm. As somebody who has issues around anxiety and sleep, I am always looking for dietary supplements that may aid in reducing the levels of anxiety that I experience and just make my brain feel a little bit calmer. Amanita is used by adults all over the US as part of a wind down or evening routine. Amantara is a brand that emphasises transparency, responsible use and education. Their website is full of information about Amanita muscaria and its potential benefits. As with any dietary supplement, it is incredibly important to consult your medical provider before trying it. To learn more about Amanita muscaria and Amantara's approach, visit amantara.com. That's amantara.com. Hello and welcome to mini episode number 505 of Real Life Ghost Stories, and I have 3 spooky stories for you today, and the last story comes from November the 28th, 2025, and story number 1 comes from Jay. I want to start by saying that I wasn't really a creepy kid, but I always felt presences, almost everywhere I went. I could feel energies from multiple areas no matter where I was. It was like I was never truly alone. Most likely I should have gotten kicked down the stairs, but my mom decided maybe not. When I was 7, I experienced sleep paralysis for the first time, and it completely terrified me. Honestly, it's probably why I'm still scared of the dark. I don't remember the nightmare that triggered it, but I woke up suddenly staring at the ceiling and realised I couldn't move. I don't see things during sleep paralysis, but I definitely felt something that night. All of a sudden, 2 hands grabbed my ankles. I tried to flinch, tried to kick, but nothing. Slowly, the hands started moving up my legs, up my stomach, until they wrapped around my neck, pinning me to the bed. I tried to scream, but as soon as I opened my mouth, a hand covered it. No sound. It probably only lasted seconds, but it felt like minutes. Finally, I managed a yell and called for my mom, and then it stopped. Around 9 or 10, we lived in a lovely home, but it had a strange, heavy vibe that apparently only I noticed. One night, me, my mom and my little brother were in the basement watching TV. The front door was directly above us. Suddenly, it opened. My mom paused the show. We listened as footsteps crossed the entryway, paused at the top of the stairs, and then slowly started coming down. Step by step by step, and then boom. Like someone jumped from a few steps above and landed right in front of us. We all looked at each other, confused and scared, and then ran upstairs. The door was closed and locked. In the same house, I kept having recurring nightmares about the basement computer room. In the dream, I'd be downstairs playing a game or watching TV and suddenly feel watched. The door would be shut, but I could see the light glowing underneath, a shadow pacing back and forth, banging on the door. I woke up every time, terrified to be in that room alone. One night I was in bed playing my Nintendo DS, playing Super Mario Brothers, of course. My door was wide open. Don't ask me why, the dark hallway was terrifying. Suddenly a light switch kept flicking on and off. I looked down the rail beside my door and the kitchen lights were doing the same thing. I thought maybe my mom was playing a prank, thinking why in the hell would she be doing this at 3 a.m, until I went down there to an empty kitchen. The lights went off the second I stepped in. Needless to say, I sprinted back to my room and slammed the door shut like my life depended on it. My grandma passed away 2 days before my 7th birthday. She was loving but very conservative, coming from a Pentecostal background, and had hoped that my mom, my aunts and my uncles would be heavily involved in the church. She had been diagnosed with MS and spent her final years in a wheelchair, very weak, needing help with almost everything. Years later, when I was 18 or 19, after coming out as a trans man and dealing with a lot of personal struggles in a not-so-progressive state, I had a dream that really stuck with me. In it, me, my mom and my 3 siblings were standing in one of our childhood living rooms when my grandma walked in, looking like she was in her late 30s or early 40s. I'd never seen her like that in real life. She looked so lively and full of peace. We were all lined up, oldest to youngest. She went down the line, telling each of us what she was proud of. When she got to me, she took my hands, looked me in the eyes, and told me she was proud that I was living as myself, and that I shouldn't be scared to live the life that I wanted. I woke up feeling touched and supported in a way that I really needed at that time. My last major encounter happened when I was 21, right after my dad passed away unexpectedly from COVID. I was feeling pretty low, so I went to my apartment gym late at night. It was empty. After a set, I sat down on a bench to catch my breath, and then looked up into the floor-to-ceiling mirror, and saw a dark figure standing in the hallway behind me. Same height, same build, same shape as my dad. I looked back, gone. I grabbed my stuff and left immediately. I don't know if it was grief messing with me or something else, but it shook me. Now, at 24, I still have little experiences. Not big stories, but enough to notice. Ghost cats randomly jumping on my bed, things falling off tables for no reason, I try to rationalise. Dreams of my dad visiting me without speaking, but somehow I hear him in my head telling me everything will be okay. I'm sceptical but open. Some things, maybe they just aren't explainable. I cannot imagine what it would be like to experience sleep paralysis at aged 7. And I know that people have written in before and said that, they had sleep paralysis from a young age, or I'm sure there's people listening who will have experienced sleep paralysis from a young age, but to be 7 years old and to not understand what's happening and to have that experience of somebody grabbing your ankles and then when you go to scream, there's a hand clamped over your mouth, that's absolutely horrific. You must have been terrified to go to bed. And I don't blame you for having a lasting fear of the dark because of it, because Christ almighty, for a 7-year-old brain, that must have just been petrifying. And in that house where you were kind of aged 9 to 10 or whatever, that feeling of being in the basement and hearing the door open, the footsteps come across the entryway and come down the stairs, and the boom like somebody had jumped down the last few steps, that's terrifying. And to feel like you are stuck in the basement, there is nowhere to go, and just waiting to see whatever it is that's making those footsteps. And it does sound like that you were potentially just more sensitive to the energy that was in that house, the reoccurring nightmare about being in that room and the light under the door and the pacing shadow and the banging and then seeing the kitchen lights flickering on and off. Like maybe you were just more sensitive. And I think your dream about your grandmother after she had died and after you had come out as a trans man is really, really beautiful. I obviously don't have experience of being trans, so I can only barely even begin to understand what it must feel like to come out as a trans man and know that members of your family maybe aren't going to understand or aren't going to accept it, and members of your wider community maybe aren't going to understand or aren't going to accept it. And that must be incredibly difficult. And I do think that people that we love who have passed away have a way of coming back. And, you should be proud of yourself for living as yourself. You should be. And I hope that as somebody who is now in their mid-20s that you feel as though you are able to live authentically as yourself, as who you are. And I hope that it is, a joyous experience. And I also do hope that the figure that you saw in the gym was your dad just looking out for you. Or maybe just a product of your own grief, as you said, because that sounds pretty scary.
ClickUp just solved AI's biggest problem, and it's saving 4 million teams from productivity loss every day. Unlike ChatGPT and other AI tools, ClickUp converges all your work into one platform, so your AI super agents have full context to prioritize tasks, execute workflows, and draft documents instantly. Teams using ClickUp finish work 30% faster and cut meetings in half. Try ClickUp for free today and get 15% off AI upgrades at clickup.com/podcast. That's CLICKUP.com/podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Peloton. The new cross-training series balances your workouts with more than 15 workout types for endless movements on and off your equipment. Stay motivated with weekly personalized plans that guide you from beginner to expert and push you past your goals with routines tailored to you. Get the new cross-training series. Terms apply.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side, your Sleep Number setting. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. And now, during our President's Day sale, take 50% off our limited edition bed, plus free home delivery with any bed and base. Ends Monday. Only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com.
Pro athletes don't spend their time meal prepping. They eat smart, train hard, and recover fast. Factor makes it easy with dietitian-designed, chef-prepared meals built to fuel your performance. Choose from high-protein, calorie-smart, GLP-1 support, and vegetarian options designed by nutrition experts to support strength and recovery. Train like a pro, eat like a pro. Right now, go to factormeals.com/healthy50off and use code healthy50off for 50% off and free breakfast for a year. That's factormeals.com/healthy50off, code healthy50off.
And our second story today comes from Heather. In early October, my elderly dad, who we all lovingly called Pa, was admitted to the emergency ward, then to a general ward, and then one morning he took a turn for the worst, and we knew that this was the beginning of the end. We were told to rush to the hospital to say goodbye, but then he held on for an incredible 8 more days in a private palliative care room until he was ready to go. Because my sister lives much further from the hospital than I do, she decided to stay by Pa's bedside overnight for as long as this whole period was going to last, sleeping in a reclining chair in his room. She said that she was comfortable enough and was only stirred by the nurses coming in every few hours to tend to my dad. It was nice to know that Pa wasn't ever alone too. It was while she was in Pa's room that my sister had an amazing experience. I've kept the text that she sent me, so will use as many of her words as I can. One night my sister was awake at around 2 a.m, and quite simply she heard a bell being rung. It was rhythmic, constant and pleasant. It sounded like a bell being gently struck rather than someone shaking a bell, if that makes sense. The sound came up the long hall, turned the corner past our dad's door on the shorter hall, and then continued down the other long hall. It lasted for 1 or 2 minutes. My sister knew that one other patient was in palliative care on the ward, so she guessed that it must be a ritual that the staff do when someone passes away to gently announce someone's death. Here's the thing though. She asked the nurse about it in the morning, and the nurse said that no, there are definitely no bells and no rituals. There was absolutely no explanation as to what she heard. The nurse was very interested and concluded the conversation by saying something like, "We all experience all sorts of things here." The following day, that other palliative care patient in that ward did die. My sister thinks she also heard the bell that morning but didn't think too much of it, as it was blended among the many daytime noises of the hospital ward. The reason my sister knows that the patient died is that the same nurse came back again to ask her about the bell and to tell her about the patient dying. My sister then Googled this phenomenon and learned that some people believe that a bell can be heard when a dying person is being invited, beckoned or welcomed to cross over. I find this absolutely comforting and beautiful. And it was wonderful to have that reassurance as we ourselves were sitting with our dad in the following days waiting for him to be ready. I had already been hoping that his dad, who I believe is my guardian spirit, would be coming to help Paul cross over when he was ready. And yes, my sister did hear that bell again. It was on the night that my beautiful dad passed away. I know, amazing. I've believed in the possibilities of the spirit world for as long as I can remember, but this experience in particular blew my mind. Because it was my sister who experienced this, who had zero priming. She was just in the hospital, minding her own business, and heard something so clearly, something that moved along the hallways, that she could only assume that it was a person. She said there was nothing scary at all or unsettling about the experience, and she definitely had no reason to expect hearing a bell being gently struck in the middle of the night in a hospital ward. We both wonder what she would have seen if she had stuck her head out the door. I love knowing that someone came for that patient, and then came for our Paul. And I hope it provides your listeners comfort too. This is really beautiful. And of course, I was trying to imagine myself being your sister kind of lying in the hospital room. And if I heard a bell in a hospital, I wouldn't, like your sister, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, what the heck is that? I wouldn't freak out. I'd just be like, that's weird. I wonder what that's for. You know, hospitals are full of weird and unusual sounds when you're not used to them, right? Like beeps and clatters and bangs and, you know, whirring of machines and all that jazz. So if I heard a bell, I'd be like, weird, but okay. And I think the idea that somebody comes to collect your loved ones when they're dying is really, really quite beautiful. And I've heard this before. I have close friends who've experienced, you know, a similar situation with a loved one dying in the home, and hearing singing, like almost like a choir singing. And also somebody else in the family heard somebody calling the person who was dying, calling their name, but not their first name, like a nickname that they used to be called when they were a child. And they kind of surmised that it's possible that people, you know, siblings or whatever that had grown up with this person and then died before them had come back to collect them. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful to think that no matter what you believe in, you know, no matter what your religious leanings are, even if you don't have any, that there is a possibility that the people that you love will come back and get you. And hearing bells, I think, is equally as beautiful. And I wonder if your sister had looked up, would she have seen anything? Because if it's an entity, a sound or whatever that's leading somebody to the afterlife, maybe it's just not for us to see, but every so often we get to hear it. And our final story today comes from Saf. This first story is a short one and not about me. It's about my older brother. When my brother was 5 years old, I was 2 years old, we lived in one of those old block flats in Hungary, on the bottom floor. My brother was definitely the creepy child, and if I could have, I would have drop-kicked him down the stairs myself. My brother, my mum and me all slept in one bed on the floor, and my mum woke up to my brother standing over her. She asked him what was wrong, and he didn't say anything, so she took him to the toilet to go for a wee, and then over to the kitchen to get a glass of water. After that, they were on their way back to the bedroom, and just before entering the room, my brother comes to a stop and just stares at the floor. My poor mum is completely creeped out by now, and asks what's the matter. My brother points to the floor and says, "Who's that man laying on the floor?" He then proceeds to look directly ahead of him, walk into the bed and go to sleep without a peep. My mom was shitting herself and she stepped over the man on the floor. In the same flat, my mum was in the living room and heard loud banging noises coming from the bedroom. She got up thinking my brother had hurt himself. She walked in and asked what on earth he was doing. He was jumping around onto the wall and climbing stuff while pressing himself up against the wall in a strange position. My mum grabbed him off the headboard of the bed and his eyes and his head were frantically darting around like he was following something. My mum told him off for being silly, as he could seriously hurt himself. He got upset and then proceeded to point at the wall and say, "But he's doing it too. This isn't fair." Oh, hell no. Moving on to my first experience. This was in 2017 when we were living in a flat in the southwest of the UK. We had the sweetest little chocolate Labrador named Pixie. She was an absolute angel and a cheeky sock thief. I was sitting cross-legged on my bed while she laid next to me. I was 10 years old at the time. and suddenly she started growling at something directly in front of me. The hairs on her back shot up and she was growling hard. But she stopped and started sniffing the air. She would do this when someone would reach a hand out to her. I started screaming. I was absolutely terrified and ran out of the room. Another experience in the same flat. I got up to go for a wee in the night, and as I walked out into the hallway, I looked into the room my mum was sleeping in. She slept on a fold-out sofa in the living room at the time. And I saw a girl in a white dress, with long, black, wet hair and no facial features leaning over my mum as she slept. Holy shit, that image is burnt into my mind, and I think it will be for the rest of my life. I could have been half asleep, but this felt way too real. Nothing else happened in that flat after that. Fast forward to November 2020, and we had just escaped from a toxic household, and we were put into emergency accommodation by the council. I was suffering a lot as we had to give our dog away. The council said no to dogs in the accommodation. My mental health was declining rapidly, so I turned to spiritualism. I took a deep dive into it. I was beyond obsessed. I was seeing a lot of shadow people during this time. I think it was a mix of how I was feeling and the residual energy of the building, as there was a lot of suffering there. I never felt scared, but I acknowledged their presence. And one night I had my arms sticking out over the edge of my bed as I was hot and trying to get to sleep. I was on my back and my palm was facing upwards. I felt a cold hand on my palm. I was absolutely shitting myself. I froze in fear and pretended to be asleep. I eventually did fall asleep, but my God, it was beyond terrifying. I was 13 at the time, so it could have been my wandering mind, but who knows? I felt what I felt. The following February 2021, we found a nice 3-bedroom home up for rent. We moved in and it felt like home. And amazing news, we managed to get our dog back. I'd never been so happy. She has unfortunately passed away now though, due to common hip dysplasia that Labradors get. The vet didn't notice and we didn't notice the signs. She was severely unwell and died in her sleep. Carrying on with the story, I gamed a lot when I was in that house, and I'd frequently stay up late. I gamed in the living room downstairs as my dog would be next to me as I did so. The sofa had its back against the living room window and was facing the little window where you could see through to the kitchen, and just before that is where the dining table is. Above the dining table in the top left corner is where it began. My dog would growl aggressively and stare into the corner. There was never anything there, and it would scare me very bad. This happened for months. Not every night, but weekly. Then, during Christmas of the same year, me and my mum were watching a movie downstairs with the lights turned off everywhere except the upstairs hallway light and the Christmas fairy lights. The positioning of the sofa was moved a few weeks beforehand, and where I was sitting, if you turned your head to the right, you could see directly down the hallway and to the front door. As I did exactly that, I saw a black figure dart up the stairs. I knew it wasn't my brother, as those stairs weren't quiet. He was upstairs gaming. I told my mom immediately and she freaked out and told me to stop because I was scaring her. I was scared too. Anyway, after Christmas, my dog was still staring at the corner, growling late at night. I had had enough. The next day I grabbed some incense sticks and walked around the house with the windows open, demanding that nobody else was allowed in the house except my family. I made my way downstairs into the living room, went over to the dining table, stood up and said to whatever that thing was to get the fuck out and that it's not allowed to come back. Well, I definitely had balls when I was younger because I would not do that now. My dog never growled into that corner again. Your brother sounds like he was terrifying. And I'm surprised your ma didn't drop kick him down the stairs, do you know what I mean? One of my brothers sleepwalks and maybe about 2 years ago, he was sleepwalking. Oh, it was probably longer actually. He was sleepwalking and he, in his dream, was stepping over something or jumping over something in his dream. But he obviously didn't realise that he was sleepwalking and he jumped headfirst into a door frame. So sleepwalking is not just freaky, but also potentially very dangerous. And as you guys know, as I've said before, I believe that every paranormal investigation team should have either a dog or a cat on board, because they will tell you when something is awry. If my dog or my cat starts growling at mid-air in front of me, I'm like, right, well, there's clearly some sort of ghost in the room, right? If my dog is staring into the corner and growling, I'm burning the house down. I'm not taking the risk, you know? And the image of your ma lying asleep and this girl with a white dress and no features leaning over her is terrifying, but it comes up all the time. That image of somebody, something, a shadow figure, the hat man, a woman, a hag, whatever it is, leaning over somebody as they sleep and somebody else witnessing it is insane. And I also think, we know that when people are in distress, so for example, a lot of the stories that get sent into the podcast, they often have a caveat that like parents are going through a divorce, or there's abuse going on in the household, or there's addiction issues, or somebody's really suffering with their mental health. And I do think that kind of energy allows things to come to fruition in some way, shape or form, or it attracts things, or maybe it's stuff that we emit from our own brains. I don't know, but something happens when humans are in distress, I think. And listen, good on you for having the wherewithal and the courage to go around the house with your incense and go, you are not welcome here. If nothing else, we have learned that seems to work, that entities or whatever are like, okay, we've had enough of this. Actually, maybe we should stop. And I think it's a good lesson to learn. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Thank you to Jay, Heather and Saf for sending in your stories. Remember, the last story came from November the 28th, 2025. And if you would like to send in your story, you can do so by emailing it to reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website, reallifeghoststoriespodcast.com. And if you are desperate for some extra content, you can subscribe to the Patreon. That is patreon.com/reallifeghoststories, where for $5 a month or for $2 a month, you can get access to heaps of extra content, as well as every single main and mini episode completely ad-free. And on that note, I shall see you next time.
Did you know you can save up to 70% on your favorite brands every single day? FromRebel.com sells strollers, car seats, espresso machines, skincare, cookware, everything you need for your home, your family, and your life, all for way less. Here's how it works. Every day, Rebel drops thousands of new products for up to 70% off. It's a non-stop feed of deals from brands like UPPAbaby, Nuna, Baby Bjorn, Nespresso, Breville, Wilson, Dyson, Caraway, and more. But every listing is one of a kind. So if you see something you love, you have to move fast. Why pay full price when you don't have to? From baby gear to tech to self-care staples, Rebel helps you save big on brands you know and love. Shop now at FromRebel.com.